Good afternoon. As people that do know me in the room, I like to start on time and try to finish on time, so please go ahead and enjoy your lunch. And I got a call last night, so I've got about 15 or 20 pages to go through. No, actually only 5 or 6, but I'll try and keep it brief. Welcome to the 11th Annual Texas Trailblazer Luncheon, sponsored by the Mays Family Foundation to kick off the 2022 Conference on Texas Changing Landscapes. I am Ryan Berg, Chair of the Board of Trustees of the Witte Museum. Maurice McDermott, President and CEO of the Witte Museum, is very sad to miss the Trailblazers Luncheon, most especially because she wished to share her admiration for celebration of Helen Kleberg Groves and for all she and the Witte team learned from Miss Groves over many years. We all know it takes a lot to bring Maurice down, and it takes a pandemic, so we know she's always very active. She called me last night and said, "Can you help out and pitch it?" And of course, I took on the challenge. She's doing fine, no problems, but she's doing the responsible thing. We'll be honoring Helen Groves and the Kleberg Family Foundation a bit later in the program, but we hope you know that your family legacy has shaped the Witte since its founding, as you have shaped so much of Texas, but most recently through the Robert J. and Helen C. Kleberg South Texas Heritage Center. Through the center, founded 10 years ago this month, you have influenced nearly 3 million visitors. 3 million. Many of them school children. Maurice and I and the Board of Trustees and the Witte team are grateful for Helen's wisdom and your Family Foundation partnership. We are so grateful that many of the Kleberg family are here today and promise to be respectful of you and your privacy during these difficult times. We will more properly thank you a little bit later in the program. In the meantime, let us please recognize past year's award winners that are here with us today. We want to recognize Susan Naylor, 2017 Trailblazer of the Year, and namesake for the Susan Naylor Center, among other wonderful places named for her family on the Witte campus. 2018 honoree Kitty West is also with us, who named the Kitty West Nelson People of the Pecos Gallery and Aqueduct for her mother, Suzanne Scott, formerly of the San Antonio River Authority. As a 2019 recipient and a most recent award winner, Mike Bollner and Bollner's Fiesta Products from 2021. Let's give them a round of applause. The Conference on Texas has become an important humanities program for the Witte that allows us to explore the work we do at the Witte Museum through the lens of new scholarship and community voices. This conference in particular will challenge us all to embark on a global conversation about Texas and our relationship to the land with some of the most accomplished naturalist advocates and designers working in Texas today. We cannot do this without the support of the following sponsors. Elizabeth Huth Coates Charitable Foundation, who graciously sponsored the conference since its beginning. We wish to personally thank Barry and Elizabeth Roberts, Amy Stern, Wendy Getting, Lisa Cox, Kelly Daniel, and George and Gretchen Stern O'Gorman, and all of the trustees for your dedication to the arts humanities. The Mays Family Foundation, as today's luncheon sponsor, we honor Lowry and the late Peggy Mays as Trailblazers 2016. Thank you for the very important Mays Center at the Witte. Texas Monthly for their continued support of the museum through the awards program, Witte Game Dinner, and many other initiatives. Thank you to the Texas Elliott family as a speaker sponsor, Bonnie and John Corbell as a scholarship sponsor, underwriting free and reduced tickets for educators and students like our Land Stewardship Ambassador High School student with us today. Jefferson Bake is the invitation sponsor, the East Foundation as tomorrow's breakfast sponsor, and Luther King Capital video sponsor for the sport the conference on Texas. And finally, I want to say a special thank you to Veltri and Vaquez Wealth Management, a Wells Fargo advisor in Wells Fargo, for agreeing to shift tomorrow's box luncheon with famed naturalist David Schmidley to a breakfast beginning at 8 a.m. so the conference can end in time for the celebration of life for Helen Kleberg Groves tomorrow. Thank you. Last year, we still were reemerging from the most difficult year, but we are proud to state that 2022 is a year of stability for the Witte. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Witte Museum Board of Trustees who helped us with critical, important, and courageous decisions over the past 2 years. And to all of you today, we are grateful. You are supporting the operations of the Witte, which is more critical than ever during these challenging times. The Conference on Texas underscores the fact that the Witte has been a witness to changing landscapes for 95 years. The Witte has stood the test of time with resilience, but also because it's beloved by so many for so long, by so many multi-generational families, corporations, including most of you in this room. And finally, so I'm almost done, and finally, I want to thank the leadership and tenacity of the historian and director of humanities, Mary Margaret McGowan, for crafting today's conference, and for the exhibits that opened tonight with James Ferdinand McCain, a Texas artist rediscovered. The beautiful catalog was underwritten by the Kleberg Foundation, and we are so grateful. So now, please enjoy your lunch. Heather Russo will begin the rest of the program in a few minutes. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Please do continue eating, but we're going to get started with the rest of the program. I'm Heather Welder Russo. I'm the Chief of Advancement here at the Witte Museum. And as Ryan marked earlier, we have a lot of some big shoes to fill without Maurice in the room. So there are like 4 of us that are trying to be her today. So I am really proud to give you the update on where the Witte is at the moment and our role as witness to the ever-changing landscape and history of Texas. First, I want to thank Ryan Berg and Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry for underwriting those beautiful journals that you have at your table, just ready for you to start taking notes for the rest of the conference. What he hasn't told you is that he and his family put forth a $95,000 challenge grant that we kicked off last week, the Time Flies campaign, a special nod to the 95th year of operation for the Witte, as well as to that vast history that is covered here at the museum, a place where you and your family can get lost in Texas deep time as you learn and have fun together. And we're pleased to report that we're only $25,000 away from our goal. So yay, thank you so much, Ryan and family, for that wonderful challenge. For the past 95 years, the Witte Museum has stood witness to Texas's changing landscapes and evolving history. We have fired up the imaginations of generations of visitors with transformative experiences in nature, science, and culture. As you have probably heard in the Gates Mineral Company and Gates and Elliott Family Orientation Theater, Texas deep time is not a place on a map, but something that has been shaped by the water, land, sky, wildlife, and people of the past, and that will be shaped by the actions that we take today. This is the basis of this year's conference. Understanding the natural world is a core aspect of the Witte Museum and has been since our founding. When you are encouraged to spend time outside and to learn about nature, you become empowered to take action in your own community on your own piece of land. The McLean Family Texas Wild Gallery, the SWBC Live Lab, and the East Foundation Land Stewardship Lab give visitors immersive experiences in the flora and fauna of the state. And as Bonnie Corbell points out, if we can inspire people to fall in love with the beauty of Texas, then they will be encouraged to protect it. So the Witte's Land Stewardship K-12 curriculum and our program in partnership with the East Foundation for high school students in San Antonio, Laredo, and Brownsville in particular serve as a model for environmental education to empower the next generation of land stewards. In everything we do, we want to inspire a love of the land. And I think we actually have some of our high school land stewardship students here with us today. We will soon be taking our earth science curriculum remotely across Texas through the Texas Museum's 360 project in partnership with Space Center Houston that will serve Texas schools offering 3D, gamified, and interactive nature and science lessons from earth geology to space technology, and all tied to the TEACs. Thank you to the 80/20 Foundation and the Kelso Foundation for your early investment in this statewide project. Just imagine the critical work that happens throughout these galleries and learning labs happening in schools across Texas. That's the Witte without walls. None of this, of course, would have any context to it without the foot planting of our shared heritage. It's hard to believe that it's been 10 years since Helen Groves, Mayor Castro, Maurice, and campaign co-chairs Don Frost and the late Ty Griesenbeck cut the ribbon on the Robert J. and Helen C. Kleberg South Texas Heritage Center. I had a 1-year-old, so the time difference is really starting to strike me. This is a foundational center that launched the expanded Witte Museum. As part of the celebration, the Witte will begin reinterpreting the central exhibition, A Wild and Vivid Land Stories of South Texas, that is loved and beloved, to expand the stories with new voices, artifacts, and new scholarship in a re-envisioned exhibit tentatively titled From Tejas to Texas. We are pleased to announce that the Witte recently received a prestigious planning grant from the National Endowment of the Humanities, which supports a portion of the total cost of the new exhibition work. But as we begin to work on the interpretive strategy, we invite you to help us frame the new exhibit. From Tejas to Texas will be grounded in new scholarship and offer highly engaging and interactive content for all ages. Y'all have been witness to the 300 Years of San Antonio History exhibition, the most recent Black Cowboys and American Story exhibition. We have been gathering these new stories to add in and layer into this center for the past few years. And we certainly want to expand the timeline from its current 100 years. So far, themes emerging include gathering at the waters, rivers, trails and trade, conflict and confluence, dignity of work, and shaping Texas. The Black Cowboys and American Story exhibition I just mentioned, we just finished its 6-month run here at the Witte. It's going to travel across the US. We are super excited to see the work that we've been doing, hopefully at the Cowboys Hall of Fame, and taken on by the Smithsonian sites. These exhibitions have drawn praise for a decade from the teachers and students who study Texas history and visit the Witte for free, to the families who see themselves and their family history depicted with honor and context. The foundation of the exhibition will remain the same as we prepare to use the spacious galleries to layer and expand that narrative. And in the meantime, we have hundreds of thousands of school children. 50,000 fourth graders alone have come from free since 2012. And they are all learning about our Texas history with an education curriculum called Texas Experience Dignity of Work. But this work requires support. And we recently launched the Witte Forever campaign with an eye on the 100th anniversary in 2026, with bold goals in endowment, capital projects, and operational excellence to ensure that the programs and content are grounded in scholarship, relevant to the community, and accessible to all audiences. We want to make sure this Witte is for all, while maintaining, of course, these wonderful facilities. Co-chaired by Peggy Walker and Dirk Elmendorf, the campaign has already garnered early support. Thank you to Kitty West and Mike and Mary Pat Bolner, who kicked off the endowment campaign through gifts to the general and exhibition funds. We've even convinced Mike to chair the endowment portion of the campaign. And today, we are proud to announce that Patty and Bob Hayes have established the first dedicated Texas history education fund, which can be used for curatorial support, program development, underwriting those 4th and 7th graders who have Texas history, and other plans that are related to the South Texas Heritage Center. Please help me thank them in investing in the long-term impact of the museum. And this is what Helen Kleberg Groves saw so clearly, that the center would be a living, breathing entity, honoring our history, but changing and evolving with the time, just as the Witte has done over the past 100 years. All of us in this room bear the responsibility of carrying the mantle that she and so many carried before us. But we think she'll be proud of what's coming next for the Kleberg South Texas Heritage Center, or we'll probably hear it from her. And now for the awards. I would like to invite last year's Texas Trailblazer, Mike Bollner, to the podium, along with Susan Naylor, to hand out the award.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mike Bollner, as you heard. Send your money in, okay. Anyway, along with my fellow Witte trustee, Susan Naylor, and a past Trailblazer recipient, it's our great privilege to present this year's Texas Trailblazer Award to the trustees of the Robert J. Kleberg Jr. and Helen C. Kleberg Foundation. Maurice is especially regretful that she's not here to greet the esteemed Kleberg family who have come from near and far to celebrate and remember the legendary Helen Kleberg Groves. But we're going to do our best to express our gratitude. As we celebrate the Trailblazer Award bestowed upon Helen and the Kleberg Foundation, as well as the 10th anniversary of the Robert J. and Helen C. Kleberg South Texas Heritage Center next door, please know that Helen's voice reverberates through the galleries, and that the story of the changing Texas landscape, a phrase that she could unpack with clarity, experience, and eloquence, has influenced nearly 3 million people, mostly school children. That's what I want to say the second time, 3 million mostly school children this past decade. We've learned so much in these 10 years from the family. In addition to the wild and vivid permanent gallery opened in 2012, we've hosted Two Women Looking West in 2014, the photographs of Helen Kleberg and her friend Tony Frizzell. Live the West, the documentary photographs of the King Ranch by photographer Janelle Kleberg in 2021, an exhibition arranged by Helen. The Noe Perez paintings of the King Ranch last year also. And today we're debuting the James Ferdinand McCann art exhibition with paintings commissioned by Henrietta King a century ago, an exhibition suggested by Helen's daughter Keena, with 14 paintings from the King Ranch. So in so many ways, the Trailblazer Award is emblematic of all that the Kleberg-Alexander family has accomplished in ranching, land stewardship, and in philanthropy, culture, and medicine. When the Kleberg Foundation, with Helen as its chair, agreed to fund and name the South Texas Heritage Center, we felt the weight of responsibility to share the complexity, grandeur, and tenuousness of working the vast lands of Texas. Stories that palpate the galleries of vaqueros, cowboys, chili queens, longhorns, cutting horses, oil workers, and farmers emanate in large part from the Kleberg family legacy. Thank you all for what you've done to help shape Texas. Now this next section, when I read this next section about the enormous contributions from to Texas from the Kleberg Foundation, there'll be no doubt they deserve the Trailblazers Award and so much more. The foundation itself was founded in 1950 in Kingsville by Robert and Helen Kleberg, who are committed to supporting and improving the quality of life through community support, innovation, and scientific research. For many years, the foundation was directed by their daughter, Helen K. Groves, and the 6 grandchildren who continue to honor their grandparents' philanthropic interests in the areas of medical and basic science research, conservation, community service, and the arts. To date, over $351 million in grants have been awarded. Nearly 2/3 have been in support of medical research in such areas as cancer, genetics, neurological disorders, and infectious diseases. 20% of the total goes to community services, and the remaining funding is split between the arts, the wildlife conservation, and animal science categories. The museum itself, the Witte Museum itself is proud to be among the many recipients of the Kleberg Foundation's generosity. And now it's time for us to honor you as Trailblazers. Will the trustees please stand and be recognized? We have Helen Alexander, Emory Hamilton, John Alexander, Kena Forgason, Henrietta Alexander, and Dorothy Matz. Will a representative of the foundation please come forward to accept the award? Looks like Kena's going to do it. What's that?
I just wanted to say a few words because no one can really say it like Maurice, but you did a great job. I'm so proud of the Witte team today. She's so amazing and grateful, and it just was heartbreaking to hear she couldn't make it, and I know that broke her heart not to be here, but I just wanted to simply say thank you. Thank you for what you guys started, and then thank you to the Witte board and everyone else for carrying it forward, and look what we have today. It's so amazing, and now we'll keep it going forward. So, but thank you so much, guys, for being here, and I got to meet your mom. Miss Helen and I have become good friends in Kentucky now. I told her it was right out there. I met her mom one time, and what an amazing lady, and you know what a role model to aspire to be. So again, so happy to honor you guys today, and thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm representing my family and the Kleberg Foundation in accepting this award for my mother. As many of you know, she just recently passed away, but one of her highlights in the last month of her life was when Mary Margaret called me and said, "The book is ready, the book is ready." And so I said, bring it over, and Mom got to see the book, and Mary Margaret got to walk her through the whole process and what the team here at the Witte did. So I want to thank this team, which is incomparable here at the Witte. Mary Margaret, Heather, Maurice. I cannot believe Maurice is not here. She's like my mother. She's always there. And anyway, we are really proud to have this show here and want to thank all the lenders, which includes my family and the King Ranch, the O'Connor family, the McCann family, and the Womack families and their relatives. This is really a wonderful representative of South Texas history and South Texas ranching history. So we're really excited to have it here at the center. Thank you very much.
Directly after luncheon, we ask all the Kleberg family to meet in front of the Salinas mural over here for a group portrait. And after the luncheon, we invite the family for a private preview of the McCann art exhibit. Thank you.
Such a trailblazing family, most appropriate. I'm Mary Margaret McAllen, Director of Humanities here at the Witte Museum. And it's been a real pleasure to put together this 5th annual Conference on Texas. It's a way for us to examine further the themes that we're following, oftentimes associated with an exhibit like this year, sometimes just themes that seem appropriate for the moment. So I am here to introduce keynote speaker of this year's conference, Joni Carswell of Texan by Nature, who's a fabulous speaker, a wonderful woman, and has done great things for conservation in the state. She's going to share with us the trailblazing conservation efforts that happen under her watch. Joni is the CEO and president of Texan by Nature, where she leads the mission to advance conservation by bringing conservation and business together. Prior to Texan by Nature, Joni was the president and CEO of Living Tree. Joni also held leadership roles in planning and strategy at Polycom and Dell. While she joins me on stage, we have a special message from Laura Bush, founder of Texan by Nature and our former First Lady. Joni?
Good afternoon to everyone gathered for the Witte Museum's Texas Trailblazer Luncheon. I'm thrilled that Joni Carswell, the Executive Director of Texan by Nature, has joined you for the Conference on Texas, Changing Landscapes. At Texan by Nature, we're committed to supporting individuals and businesses in conservation and land stewardship, and we're proud to partner with the Witte Museum. Congratulations to the 2022 Texas Trailblazers, my friends at the Kleberg Family Foundation. I'm grateful that each of these Texas Trailblazers is doing their part to take care of the land, water, and wildlife that make our state unique. Conservation is a big, bold job, but Texans are big, bold people. Together, we can ensure that our beautiful state is thriving for centuries to come.
Thank you, Mary Margaret. And of course, the message that you just saw and heard was recorded prior to Helen Kleberg Grove's passing last week. And Mrs. Bush actually reached out and wanted to send along an additional message to the family today. She shares her deepest condolences with the family and friends, and she's celebrating the legacy built by Helen. She's celebrating her stewardship and approach to land and wildlife, which are actually the cornerstones of the work uplifted and replicated by Texan by Nature. Mrs. Bush hopes that each of us, all of us here today, will honor Helen by continuing the ethos of stewardship she planted and developed in Texas. So, condolences. Yeah. So today it's really fitting that we are talking about Texas as part of the global conversation. You know, Texas long has been this mythical thing as you travel, even across the United States, but internationally. We don't say we're Americans, we say we're Texans. And people automatically react and they're like, ooh, Texans, they're proud, they're bold, they're bigger than life. And more than that, we have an opportunity to build on that ethos that makes us who we are. You know, independent, spirited, we persevere, we have grit. But we have a place here in Texas where we can truly be the model of conservation moving forward. And so I have an engineering background, I like data. And I always like to share the facts of why we're so proud to be Texans and why we're so proud to live and to operate and to lead in Texas. Texas is number one in pretty much every category that you look at, whether it's business, where we have the 9th largest economy in the entire world, and we have leadership in industries, whether it is energy, oil, gas, solar, wind, whether it is agriculture, whether it's even education. We have leadership across so many areas. We also, as we know, have a growing population. 29 million people, we may reach 30 million people this year. So we have a lot we need to be looking at and taking care of as our state continues to develop and as we care for and help all of those people thrive. We also have conservation, but conservation here in Texas is unique because we have 11 distinct ecoregions. So we have this opportunity in Texas to pair industry leadership with our mindset and our ethos with all of these microcosms, right? All of these ecoregions and very unique areas, and really develop models for conservation that change the globe. We have a test bed right here where we can build on the land stewardship that's been part of our ethos for centuries, the academic institutions that are doing the research and delivering the impact numbers. And we have this opportunity to share that with the rest of the globe and be true leaders in global conservation. And that's actually exactly what Mrs. Bush and her fellow co-founders of Texan by Nature had in mind. As mentioned, Texan by Nature was founded by Laura Bush in 2011, and we were founded to advance conservation across the state of Texas. But what does that mean? When they started talking about wanting to make a difference, first and foremost in that room was the fact that Texans, landowners in particular, have been conservationists for generations. So how do we take and make the resources available and take the learnings from those landowners and build upon that and make that an ethos, whether you are an urban dweller, someone new to Texas? How do we take and proliferate that globally? And so Texan by Nature was born to advance conservation by bringing all of the groups together. Because if you look at where we are today, we were talking a little bit at our table about the future of conservation really residing in education. And that's education as we would traditionally think about it from K-12 or higher education, but it's also education within broader communities. It's institutions like the Witte Museum giving you a place to go and learn. It's education of the corporate partners that we have across Texas, understanding how they can better interact with landowners, how they can better interact with conservation groups. It really is the foundation of how we'll move forward. And so a lot of you in the room are leaders in bringing a lot of the groups together, but I like to look at it from the standpoint of there's certainly a confluence of where industry and conservation and community and land come together. And each of those has expertise that the other group does not. Each of those have gaps that can be filled. And so what we have across Texas are projects that are taking place that are really sitting in the center of folks like the Cesar Kleberg Wildlife Research Institute, starting the research and providing the data for work that can be done with oil and gas and landowners. And you have those groups providing data, doing research, providing funding, providing land, all of them needing to work together to advance conservation as we move forward. And so a lot of the projects that we uplift, the conservation that we advance, it's all projects that sit at that confluence of all of these groups coming together for a better future, and one where we are continuing to leave working lands working, leave our lands doing what they do best. And so I always like to provide a couple of examples of where that's happening. And some of these you guys will be familiar with. Some of you are leading these. And some of them may be new to you because they're maybe outside the areas where you typically focus. But I wanted to provide a snapshot of what we're seeing across the state of Texas today, something that we can build on and learn from. The first being something that's actually happening out near Big Bend. CIMEX has actually funded, and they have a huge ranch area called the El Carmen Land Conservation Company. They hired 2 former Parks and Wildlife biologists. They work with the Bighorn Sheep Society. They work with Quails Forever, Pheasants Forever, and they have created a massive landowner guide for others to follow suit of creating wildlife corridors, creating water sources so that wildlife and ultimately hunting can continue to thrive out in West Texas, even in the face of energy development, or in their case, aggregate mining. So this is a great example of them working in an area of Texas with landowners. They're working to replicate the practices with the adjacent ranches and learning from those adjacent ranches as well. But the data that's coming out of there and the practices that are being shared are shaping other conservation efforts across the state of Texas. Moving to what is equally important, our coastlines, and taking care of the vast amount of waterfront that we have here in Texas. There's a project going on down in the valley called Friends of RGV Reef. And this was started by 2 brothers who grew up redfish fishing. And suddenly, there were fewer and fewer redfish, and they started looking into it and realized that troll fishing had created such devastation and taken out so much of the reef that there was no longer a nursery area for those redfish. And so they put their heads together. It was two accountants. They own a little bit of land, but more they had ethos for the water out there. And they actually started talking to BNSF Railway and ended up getting tons and tons of railroad ties that were just slated to go to a landfill and take up space on our land. They actually sunk those and created a 1 square mile reef. Now they're seeing the redfish come back, jobs have been created, tourism is again increasing, so it's helping the economy of that area. They've also seen the Kemp's Ridley turtle come back, and now Enbridge is actually getting involved and funding research with universities in South Texas to understand the blue carbon impact so that they will utilize Texas coast and Texas land projects to actually address their environmental goals globally. So again, huge opportunity, whether it's far west Texas or our coastline of academia, landowners, community members, industry coming together to make a big difference for our state moving forward. Another example that you may be aware of, and hopefully you guys have all seen Lights Out Texas. Witte has been involved in that as well. I'm seeing some nods. So Apache actually got involved with McDonald Observatory out in the Permian a few years back, and they initiated a dark skies effort because as the development was taking place for oil and gas, the light was making its way onto the horizon, and it was negatively impacting the research that the McDonald Observatory does out there. And some pretty simple changes of turning lights down, using different temperature lights, using different fixtures, and you don't have a problem because it's not about dark ground, it's just about dark skies. And Apache actually came to understand not only was the light negatively impacting nocturnal wildlife, but it was not safe for their employees. When they changed their lighting practices, they had fewer safety instances and they used less energy. So economically, it made sense. They published that, and we've been working with them to get the rest of the oil and gas industry to implement that. But even more, we used that foundation to work with local Audubon groups, Audubon Texas, Texas Conservation Alliance, and others across Texas to do a Lights Out initiative. Because here in Texas, 1 in every 3 migratory birds globally passes through our state each fall and spring. And most of them migrate at night. So if we can work with our industry partners to turn off their lights from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m., not only are we seeing less problems on our grid, don't want to have that conversation, but having some less energy problems, but we're also, it's better for the birds who are migrating and any of the wildlife that are in and around urban areas. So again, just building on the stewardship that has been part of Texas for so long. And then and we actually have one of their leaders in the room with us today. We have reforestation efforts going on in East Texas. So the Texas Longleaf team is working with landowners, providing funding and guidance to do longleaf restoration on their land. So far, they've had international paper as part of that to provide funding, but more and more we're seeing community and industry partners who are interested because now, through the partnership with academia and the Texas Forest Service, we better understand the carbon impact of that restoration, the water impact, so the water quality of having those trees in place. And, again, we've talked about the desert area, forest area, coastal area. These types of examples are taking place all over Texas. So it's truly a point in time, and you'll hear from more groups and leaders over the next couple of days where we're going in education, information about ocelots, my personal favorite, and the work that's being done on Texas ranches, near Texas urban areas, in ecoregions all over our state that the globe is going to build on as we move forward. So another and I think final example, a lot of us are seeing solar and wind development. And solar is coming in faster and faster. Some of you may have solar on your ranches at this point. But we're seeing some interesting practices come in with co-pairing grazing, watershed development. We've had some interest actually in longleaf, depending on where that solar is being implemented. But again, they're coming into Texas, and instead of developing and just doing it for their own profitability, there's more and more interest in working with local leaders like yourself to guide them on what are the right native mixes, what are the right practices, how do we engage in the local community as we develop here in Texas. So I won't go into all of the other examples, but if you look across Texas, everything from pollinator habitat taking place in the Eagleford Shell and understanding the carbon impact of native restoration long-term, to prairie wetlands, to wetland construction, to even oyster shell recycling in our urban areas. There's opportunity to get involved and to share more about the information that's out there. And so I always like to leave with a call of action. And today, it strikes me that we have such an opportunity to build on the Kleberg Foundation legacy and the Trailblazers that you are, the legacy of Helen Kleberg Groves as well, and to really take what she did as a leader in the space, what you're all doing as a leader in this space, and focus on uplifting and replicating these projects that are taking place. So there's probably one near you in the urban areas where you reside. There are probably local conservation groups where you can provide some of the expertise that you have so that we can truly, in the global conversation, help everyone understand Texas's role in providing not only spirit, but clean air, clean water, energy, and examples for the rest to follow. So thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you so much, Joni, for sharing some of the examples of what's happening across the state. We are at the Witte Museum are proud to be a partner of Texan by Nature. We're also all of those other organizations that are doing such good work. We are ready to be your public access point for that information. I'm pretty sure Helen Holdsworth, our Chief of Engagement in charge of our public programming, is ready to put you in touch and in action with our student programming and our family days and our adult evening programs. So stay tuned, I'm sure she'll be calling. And that concludes this year's Texas Trailblazers Luncheon. So how we're gonna work the rest of this, the next session for the conference starts at 2 p.m., and that's The Future of the Earth, Climate-Ready Buildings with Stephen Hennigan, who's the CEO of Credit Human, the gorgeous building down Broadway. It's gonna be here in the Mays Center. So I'm gonna ask that you let the Kleberg family let us get their picture over by the Salinas mural, and those that want the preview of the McCann exhibit, Mary Margaret's gonna take you through that. The rest of you, on this really hot day, we have coffee for you outside. I wonder if RK has thought to put some ice. Who would have thought? Perfect timing for us to talk about changing landscapes. The rest of the afternoon sessions are going to be in the Prassel and Memorial auditoriums, and then we're all gonna come back together again at 5:30 for the opening reception of the McCann exhibition, 5:30 to 7:30. And just a reminder, tomorrow morning, we have moved the luncheon with David Schmidley, sponsored by Wells Fargo and Wells Fargo Advisors, to a breakfast. A breakfast starts bright and early, 8 o'clock, 8:30 is the program, in order for us to be able to join in with the rest of the Alexander family in celebrating their mom. So thank you so much for being with us today.